The words hit me before the meaning did. "Melissa, I think it's best if you leave." My father's voice carried across the dining room with the same cold precision he used in closing arguments. The crystal chandelier above seemed to dim, or maybe that was just my vision narrowing. I felt my fingers tighten around the stem of my wine glass until the fragile bowl threatened to crack. The chatter around the table died instantly. Forks froze mid-air. My sister Lauren's perfectly painted smile faltered. My brother Bryce suddenly found his plate fascinating. Every eye in that room turned toward me. Some confused, most knowing. They'd been waiting for this. My father stood at the head of the table, hand still raised with his toast incomplete, looking at me like I was a motion to dismiss that had just been granted. The formal invitation, the demanded attendance, the placement card at the far end near Aunt Marlene, who thought Jonah was my driver. It had all been orchestrated for this exact moment, public execution disguised as family celebration. My name is Melissa. I'm 34 and a publishing director. This is the story of how I stopped begging for a seat at a table that was never meant for me. I stood because what else could I do? My napkin slipped from my lap to the floor, but I didn't bend to pick it up. My hands had gone numb, my throat tight, but I wasn't crying. Not yet. I'd learned long ago how to swallow shame in front of the Harper family. It was practically a survival skill. Then Jonah's chair scraped against the hardwood floor. My husband stood beside me, and there was something in his posture I'd rarely seen. A coiled tension that made every person in that room suddenly sit straighter. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking directly at my father with the kind of steady gaze that made corporate investors uncomfortable in negotiations. "I'd like to make a toast," Jonah said quietly. My father's jaw tightened. "This isn't your place." "That's debatable," Jonah replied, raising his glass. "But tonight I'm the only one acting like family." The room held its breath. I felt something shift inside me, not just relief that someone was defending me, but something sharper, anger. Clear, focused, overdue anger. Because this moment didn't start tonight. It started 34 years ago when I was born the wrong kind of Harper. The kind who loved stories more than stock portfolios, who chose words over litigation, who measured success in lives touched rather than titles earned. My father, Gerald Harper, was a litigation partner who'd built his career on destroying opposing counsel's arguments with surgical precision. At home, he applied the same ruthless standards. Love wasn't given. It was earned through achievement that met his exact specifications. My siblings learned to perform. I learned to disappear. Bryce, the eldest, became everything Dad wanted. Varsity athlete, law school honors, now climbing the ranks at Dad's old firm. Lauren went into cardiothoracic surgery, because of course she did. Their successes were celebrated with champagne and speeches at gatherings like this one. Mine were tolerated when they couldn't be ignored. I was 8 when I won my first writing contest. I handed Dad the certificate with trembling hands, desperate for just a flicker of pride. He glanced at it and said, "Writing doesn't pay the bills." That was it. No congratulations. No display on the fridge like other parents did. Just a reminder that I'd chosen wrong, was wrong, would always be wrong in his eyes. When I switched my major from business to English Lit freshman year, he cut off my college funding entirely. "If you're going to chase dreams, do it on your own dime." I worked 2 jobs, took out loans, graduated with honors. It changed nothing. I spent my 20s trying to earn what should have been given freely. I shrank myself to fit into conversations about court cases and medical procedures. I laughed at jokes that weren't funny. I showed up to gatherings where I was treated like a ghost even when I was standing right there. Then I met Jonah in a bookstore on a rainy Tuesday, and for the first time, someone saw me without asking me to change. He was comparing book blurbs with the seriousness of someone choosing a life philosophy. When he caught me smiling at his intensity, he grinned back and offered to buy me tea. That afternoon turned into 3 hours of conversation, where he actually listened, not to judge, but because he was genuinely interested in what I had to say. Jonah didn't come from money or prestige. His father was a union electrician, his mother a public school art teacher. They welcomed me like I'd always belonged with them. When we got married a year later, my father said he was busy that weekend. He didn't attend. My siblings sent perfunctory texts. But Jonah's mom cried happy tears and his dad called me family, and I realized that's what real love looked like. Uncomplicated, unconditional, freely given. So when the ivory invitation arrived 3 weeks ago, thick cardstock with Dad's monogram in gold foil, I knew I should throw it away. Harper family celebration, immediate family only, formal attire. No explanation of what we were celebrating, no warm note, just a command performance. "You don't have to go," Jonah said gently when he found me staring at it. "I know," I replied, but some pathetic part of me still hoped. Maybe Dad was softening. Maybe he'd finally see me. I bought a dark green satin dress, had my hair done, rehearsed polite things to say in the car on the way over. When we arrived at Dad's house, the one that used to be my parents' before Mom died, no one greeted us at the door. Inside, soft jazz played. Lauren held court in red silk by the fireplace. Bryce laughed with Dad's colleagues from the firm. They looked at me like I was furniture. Spoken to, but not included. Tolerated, but not welcomed. The place cards at dinner told the real story. Dad at the head, Lauren to his right, Bryce to his left, Jonah and me at the far end next to Aunt Marlene, who spent dinner spooning mashed potatoes onto her napkin and asking if Jonah was my driver. I watched Dad laugh with my siblings, toast to their achievements, speak animatedly about their careers. I sat 30 feet away and felt like I was watching through glass. Every minute confirmed what I already knew but kept denying. I would never be enough for him because I'd never wanted to be what he required. Then came the toast, the one where he praised Bryce's leadership and Lauren's surgical precision, where he talked about those who choose different paths while looking directly at me, where he smiled that cold litigation smile and said the words that would change everything. "I think it's best if you leave." Now Jonah was raising his glass and my father's face had gone rigid. "To the woman you just tried to dismiss," Jonah said, his voice cutting clear through the silence. "My wife, Melis." He turned slightly toward me, then back to Dad. "You say tonight is for people who matter. Let me tell you who matters. Melis built her life without a safety net after you cut her off. She worked 2 jobs while finishing her degree. She launched her own imprint and gave dozens of authors their first shot. Veterans, immigrants, teenagers who'd never seen themselves in a book before. She's been featured in literary festivals you've probably never heard of because you never asked. Dad's knuckles went white on his wine glass. "But none of that matters to you," Jonah continued, "because you don't measure success in impact. You measure it in status and control. And when Melis refused to conform, you didn't just dismiss her. You erased her, publicly, on purpose." He looked around the table. "To the rest of you, if this feels awkward, it should. You watched a father humiliate his daughter in front of everyone and you said nothing. Some of you smiled. The silence was absolute. My cousin couldn't meet my eyes. Lauren's face had gone pale. Then Jonah looked at me, his expression softening. "But here's what matters. Melis, I see you. I've always seen you. Not as the daughter who failed someone else's checklist, but as the woman who had the courage to define herself." Something broke open in my chest. Not pain this time. Recognition. Jonah turned back to Dad. "You told her to leave. Fine. We'll both leave." He set his glass down gently. "But don't ever mistake your silence for authority again. You may control this house and dominate this family, but you do not get to dictate her worth." He took my hand, steady, certain, warm. And that's when I realized I wasn't leaving in shame. I was walking away from people who would never see me. There's a difference. But I wasn't done yet. I pulled my hand gently from Jonah's and turned to face my father. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. "Do you know what's funny, Dad?" I said. "I spent 34 years thinking something was wrong with me, that if I just worked harder, achieved more, became someone different, you'd finally love me." I looked around the table. "But tonight made me realize you can't love what you don't respect, and you've never respected anything that didn't look exactly like you." My father's face remained impassive, but I saw his jaw working. "Bryce," I said, turning to my brother, "how many times did you use my marketing analysis for your pitches? 3, 4? You never credited me, just took the work and collected the praise." Bryce's face flushed red. A few people shifted uncomfortably. Lauren, I continued, my sister's eyes going wide. Remember when you told Mom's hospice nurse I was too emotional to make medical decisions? You had me removed from her care team in her final weeks. I barely got to say goodbye. Lauren opened her mouth, then closed it. I looked back at my father. You taught them that cruelty is fine as long as it's polite. That exclusion is acceptable if you dress it up in formal invitations and place cards. But I'm done being your lesson in what happens to Harper children who don't perform correctly. I picked up my purse. And Dad, since you're so concerned about contributions and legacies, I've been documenting everything, every dismissal, every exclusion, every time you told Mom not to encourage my foolishness. I'm writing a memoir. My father's face finally changed. Fear flickered across it. It's not about revenge, I said quietly. It's about truth, about what happens to children raised by parents who treat love like a performance review. My publisher thinks it'll resonate with a lot of people. I looked at Lauren and Bryce. You'll both be in it. Every stolen credit, every cruel comment, every time you stood silent while he tore me down. I'm not changing your names. The room was so quiet I could hear the candles flickering. You wanted me to leave, I said to my father. Consider it permanent. But unlike you, I'm not doing it quietly. I'm doing it publicly, with receipts. I walked toward the door with Jonah beside me, his hand finding mine again. At the threshold, my father's voice cracked out. If you write that book, you're cut off permanently from everything. I didn't turn around. Your money was never what I needed. Your love was, and that expired a long time ago. The door closed behind us with a soft click. Outside, the night air felt impossibly clean. In the car, I started shaking, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally speaking truth after 34 years of swallowing it. You okay? Jonah asked softly. I think so, I said. Then I laughed, a real, genuine laugh. I'm writing that book. I'm actually doing it. He squeezed my hand. I know. I saw it in your eyes the moment you decided. The next morning, I woke to 17 texts. Bryce said, that was unnecessary. Lauren said, you've always made everything about you. Various relatives with concerned trolling messages about family unity and forgiveness. I blocked them all, but there was one message that mattered, from my editor at work. Coffee Monday? Want to hear your pitch for that memoir you mentioned? I'd sent her a voice memo at 2 a.m., unable to sleep, the words pouring out after years of silence. Now it was real. I wasn't just walking away. I was speaking up. Not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever been made to feel like they were the problem when really, they were just surrounded by the wrong people. The book took 8 months to write. I poured everything into it. The small cruelties, the gaslighting disguised as concern, the way exclusion became normal when everyone participated in the silence. I changed some details to protect privacy, but the emotional truth remained raw and unflinching. My publisher scheduled it for fall release. The marketing team called it necessary and brave. I called it survival. 3 weeks before publication, my father's attorney sent a cease and desist letter. I sent it to my own lawyer, who laughed and said, truth is an absolute defense. They have nothing. The cease and desist was quietly dropped 2 weeks later. The book launched on a Tuesday in October. By Friday, it had hit 3 bestseller lists, not because it was salacious, because it was honest. Thousands of people left reviews saying, this is my family too. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. My father never contacted me directly, but Lauren sent an email 6 weeks after publication. You've embarrassed us all. I hope you're happy. I wrote back. I'm not happy, but I'm free. There's a difference. She remained in her surgical position, but I heard through a colleague that her application for a department head role was quietly withdrawn. Bryce sent nothing. But through mutual connections, I heard he'd been asked to step back from a board position after someone forwarded him passages from my book at a meeting. Apparently, comparing his professional reputation to my actual documented work made him look less impressive. The things he'd taken credit for suddenly had my fingerprints all over them. Through those same connections, I learned my father had resigned from 2 nonprofit boards. Quietly, without explanation, the Whisper Network had read my book. Karma isn't revenge, it's just the truth catching up. 1 year after that dinner party, I stood in the nursery of our new home outside Seattle, rocking my daughter as spring rain tapped against the window. Her name is Iris June Harper, Iris for resilience. The flower that grows back every year no matter what tries to kill it. June for new beginnings. She was 6 weeks old and already had Jonah's steady gaze and a grip that wouldn't let go once she'd taken hold of something. I'd found out I was pregnant 3 months after that dinner, during the most intense period of writing. Somehow, creating new life while documenting old wounds felt right. "Everyone's here," Jonah said from the doorway, holding my tea. Our living room was full of chosen family, Jonah's parents, my co-workers, friends who'd shown up without conditions. String lights glowed warm against the walls. A cake said, "Welcome, Iris." No speeches about achievements, just people who loved without requiring performance. Later, after everyone left, I found a letter by the door. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. My father's. I held it for a long moment, then placed it unopened in a drawer. Not out of bitterness. I'd already said everything I needed to say, in print for the world to read. I didn't need his words anymore. They no longer shaped me. That night, I sat beside Iris's crib, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. I thought about the woman I used to be, the one who begged for permission to exist, who shrank herself trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for her. I leaned close and whispered the words I wished someone had said to me as a child. "You are already enough. You don't have to earn my love. It's yours completely, unconditionally, forever." As I said it to her, I realized I was finally saying it to myself too. To the little girl who loved stories when she was supposed to love law. To the young woman who walked out of that dining room and found her voice on the other side. To the author who turned her pain into purpose. And to every daughter who ever wondered if she was the problem, let me tell you what I learned. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't win their approval. It's stop needing it. The people who matter will see you without you having to prove yourself. And the ones who don't, they're just characters in your origin story, the obstacle that taught you how strong you really were. I don't talk to my father anymore. I don't need to. But thousands of strangers write to me now saying my words gave them permission to leave toxic families, set boundaries, stop performing for people who would never appreciate the show. That's not revenge. That's justice. And it turns out the best revenge isn't making them sorry. It's making them irrelevant while you build something beautiful they can't touch. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.